Good evening. Welcome to the July Board of Zoning Appeals. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. First things on our agenda will be prayer and pledge. We'll ask Troy to lead us in prayer and Scott to lead us in the pledge. Please stand.
Pray with me. Father, we thank you for this opportunity to serve our community. We thank you for the leadership of our town. We ask that you would give us discernment, guide us, and lead us as we make decisions as best as we move forward. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Face the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, fellas. Mitch, next item on our agenda, citizens' comments. Any at this time?
Not at this time.
Item number 4 will be approval of our minutes from the June 17, 2021 meeting. Those are in your packet. I have reviewed them. Hopefully you have as well. If you don't have any additions or corrections, we'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve, second.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Number 5 on our agenda, new business. And we have, looks like 3 items tonight, a special exception for Caleb Spearing, setback variances, Lewis Perkins and Travis Webb. We'll start with the special exception for Mr. Spearing. Mitch.
Yeah, this is a special exception request to allow an upper story residential dwelling at 11 North Lowry Street. Property is also located within the historic zoning district, so any modifications that the applicant wishes to make will also need to be heard by the Historic Zoning Commission. The applicant wishes to use the second level for living, which would be rented out, and also an office space, which would be utilized by the applicant. The first floor will be used as a cafe restaurant space. Parking spaces to utilize this building would be across North Lowry Street in the town-owned parking lot and behind the building. There are 2 sections of the zoning ordinance that list requirements for this special exception. Section 5.052.1.E6 requires minimum floor area of an upper story residential dwelling to be 500 square feet. The applicant has mentioned that about 1,000 square feet would encompass that residential space. The second section is 7.060 B and C, which are detailed below. Section 7.060 of the Municipal Zoning Ordinance lists general requirements for zoning variance request. Those requirements, staff findings are as follows. A conditional use permit shall be provided. The board finds that it is so designed, located, and proposed to be operated so that public health, safety, and welfare will be protected. Staff finds proposed use of an upper story residential unit should not negatively affect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. Will not adversely affect other property in the area in which it's located. Staff finds that the proposed use should not adversely affect other property in the area, as there are other commercial uses in the area as well as an apartment complex which is currently under construction less than a quarter mile south on South Lowry Street. Is within provisions of special exceptions as set forth in the ordinance. Section 5.052.1C lists upper story residential dwelling as a special exception within the C1 district. Conforms to all applicable provisions of this ordinance for the district in which it is to be located, as well as the provisions cited in section 7.060 and 7.061, and is necessary for public convenience in the location planned. Staff finds the site may be able to conform to all provisions of the municipal zoning ordinance as listed in criteria review section 7.060C. Ingress and egress to the property and proposed structures thereon with particular reference to automotive and pedestrian safety and convenience, traffic flow and control, and access in case of fire catastrophe. Access to this site would utilize the rear lot behind the building, which is located off of Sam Hager Street and 2nd Street. Off-street parking and loading area were required with particular attention to the items 1 above and the economic noise, vibrations, glare, odor effects, and the special exception on or by adjoining properties and properties generally in or near the district. Staff finds proposed use should not create any of the above effects on adjoining properties. Refuse and service areas. Refuse collection may proceed in the same manner as currently. Utilities with reference to location availability and compatibility. This location does have all the necessary utilities available. Screening and buffering. Screening and buffering should not be required in this instance. Signs, if any, and proposed exterior lighting with reference to glare, traffic, safety, economic effect, and compatibility and harmony with properties in the district. Staff finds the proposed use will fit the compatibility with properties in the same district in reference to the above effects. Any proposed signage will need to meet the historic overlay guidelines. Required yard and no other open space. Staff finds that this is an existing building within the C1 district and setbacks and open space requirements do not apply. General compatibility with adjacent properties. Staff finds that the use may be compatible with the adjacent building. 9B, North Lowry was approved in 2013 for an upper story residential dwelling. The following additional rules apply for upper story residential development proposals. A, all upper story residential development proposals shall require a certified statement demonstrating a firm agreement for parking reserved exclusively for the use of the upper story residential development. And B, all upper story residential developments shall be in compliance with all building, utility, and housing codes within the Smyrna Municipal Code. In conclusion, staff finds the use of a upper story residential dwelling would fit the area. If approved, staff recommends the conditions placed that include the residential area be a minimum of 500 square feet, a minimum of 2 parking spaces that are designated for the residential unit, and that all building, utility, and housing codes are met during construction of this property. Couple pictures. This is on the corner of Sam Hager and Lowry Street. And then it would be this end unit right here from the rear. So this would be the rear parking that would be utilized. This is across the street and looking at the building right here on the end. That's all I got.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any comments or questions for Mitch or council before we open a public hearing? All right, Mitch, just real quick, which one in that picture there is 9B?
9B is, I believe, right here.
Right next door.
Or it's this one right here.
Okay.
2.
All right, thank you. At this time, we will close the Board of Zoning Appeals and open a public hearing for anyone who would like to speak for or against this request. If you would like to, don't have to. Okay, not seeing anyone, we'll close the public hearing and reopen the Board of Zoning Appeals for discussion and a motion. My initial comments are, and I have the benefit because of being on the council that there's been a lot of discussion amongst the council about the Depot District, that area of town, what we would like to see happen there. Not just housing, but also cafes, coffee shops, ice cream shops, which are there. Those walkable locations, that's what we would like downtown to become. That's our vision. It's going to take years to get there, we recognize that, but I think that what you guys are proposing is pretty much in line with exactly what our vision is. We obviously have a precedent with 9B that upper story housing essentially in the same complex has been allowed and approved previously. So I don't see any issues with the request. I don't know if any of you have any comments or questions to add.
I think that sums it up. The staff report was excellent on this, so thanks for that. I'm going to move to approve the special exception to allow an upper story residential unit. And I'd like to put the following conditions on that. That include the residential area be a minimum of 500 square feet, a minimum of 2 parking spaces are designated for the residential unit, and that all building, utility, and housing codes are met during construction.
Excellent. We have a motion with staff comments that are identified in your packet. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The special exception is approved. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is the 2 setback variances. Lewis Perkins, 206 Caroline Lee Drive. Mitch?
Yeah, this applicants requested a zoning variance to place a pool within their front yard setback. In addition, a front setback variance will need to be granted for this request. The applicant is requesting a 23-foot front setback variance off Old Jefferson Pike. The property is zoned R2, which is low-density residential and approximately 0.4 acres in size. Minimum front yard requirement in an R2 zone is 35 feet. The property has 2 front setbacks. The applicant is proposing a front setback variance of 23 feet along Old Jefferson Pike, which would make the structure about 12 foot off of the right-of-way of Old Jefferson Pike. The proposed pool is to be roughly 20 by 33 in size, and existing fence, which does include the rear yard as well, is already located at the site. Section 7.080D of the zoning ordinance detail requirements for variances not involving special flood hazard areas, and they are detailed below. The board shall not grant a variance unless it makes finding based upon the evidence presented as it follows. The particular physical surroundings, shape, topographic conditions of the specific property involved that would result in a particular hardship upon the owner as distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the strict application of the ordinance were carried out must be stated. The applicant, staff finds that the property has 2 front setbacks that must be met by the owner under the zoning ordinance of 35 feet for any structures. The conditions upon which a petition for a variance is based would not be applicable generally to other property within the same district. Due to the property having these 2 front setbacks, the front setback of the lot would affect the location of the proposed pool placement in the backyard, being one of the 2 front setbacks is located in the rear yard. The variance will not authorize activities in a zone district other than those permitted by the ordinance. Customary accessory buildings or structures are allowed by right in the R2 district, but are to adhere to all applicable setbacks. Financial returns shall not be considered as a basis for granting the variance. The applicant has not identified financial returns as a reason for this request. The alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property after the effective date of the ordinance. Creation and size of the lot and house were not completed by the applicant. That granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this ordinance to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. Staff finds that the variance request will not provide the applicant with any special privileges denied by the ordinance to other lands, structures, or buildings within the R2 district due to the hardship listed above of 2 front setbacks. 2 of the properties which are located on the same street as this, as Caroline Lee Drive, have requested similar variances in the past for pools and were approved. The variance is the minimum that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. Staff finds that the requested setback variance may be the minimum to make possible the reasonable use of the structure for the proposed use. Granting the variance will not be detrimental to public welfare or injurious to other property or improvements in the area. Staff finds the variance will not be detrimental to public welfare or injurious to other property or improvements in the area. Proposed variance will not impair adequate supply of light and air to adjacent property, substantially increase the congestion of the public streets, increase the danger of fire, endanger public safety, or substantially diminish or impair property values. Staff finds the variance will not have any of these above effects. Number 10 is not applicable in this case. In conclusion, staff finds the property does have the 2 front setbacks, which any structure must meet. Having the second front setback located in the rear yard creates a more constricted building envelope than on normal lots with 1 front setback. There are 2 other residences on Caroline Lee Drive which have been granted the same request in previous years due to similar issues with their properties. 2 variances are being requested with this zoning variance to locate a pool in the front setback and a front setback variance of 23 feet on Old Jefferson Pike for that pool. This is taken from Caroline Lee Drive looking at the house. Just on the other side of the house, this is their backyard with the existing fence. And this is from Old Jefferson Pike looking back, so a pool would be somewhere in this area. Just a visual showing where the property lines are at, along with where they're wanting that proposed pool to be located on the property.
Excellent. Thank you, Mitch. I see that the variance request is 23 feet. I'm assuming you were calculating that based on the drawing. 12 feet's the closest the pool would be to the line, so 12 and 23 is the 35, right? That's where you're getting the 23?
Yes, that was submitted on the, with it, the application that was submitted,
Right.
that was drawn out, yep.
Yeah, so the 23 foot is based on the 12 foot being the closest point. The way the kidney-shaped pool kind of is, the far right corner, based on the drawing, would only be 18 feet. So since it's not square, it wouldn't be the full length of the pool, just
Right.
kind of that one point.
And it's inside that existing fence that's
Yeah.
already there. So.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Any questions, comments for Mitch? Nope, all right. At this time, we'll close the Board of Zoning Appeals and open a public hearing. Anyone that would like to speak for or against the request? Not seeing anyone, we will close the public hearing and reopen the Board of Zoning Appeals. Go ahead.
I'm gonna tell you what, This is something we've seen several times. There is a hardship of having the second front setback. There's absolutely no special privilege here. This is something we've done with other applicants. There's already a fence there, it's gonna be behind, so.
She also kind of has a little bit of an odd-shaped lot on top of that. So.
Yeah, actually, I don't see another place that actually could go. That is the best location to make, and I think staff even mentioned, this is the best location to make the minimum use.
Yeah.
So in here, I think it checks everything.
And we've already approved two in the past.
Yeah, on the
I
same.
mean, right down.
Literally 2 doors
Yeah.
down.
Yes.
I know
Yeah,
the
it's been a lot of
Rainers. The Rainers have one, and I don't remember your neighbor on the corner, but I know that both of them have
Mario.
those. Yeah,
I don't know his last name.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and move that we approve sorry about that, the zoning variance to have the pool in a front setback due to the hardship of there being 2 front setbacks, and also approve a setback variance of 23 feet on Old Jefferson Pike.
excellent. We have a motion, I think meets all the requirements. We got both variances in there, so we're good, Jeff, with that motion. Okay, a second.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion has been approved. Your setback variance is good. Just make sure that when they dig that hole, they stay 12 feet off that line. If for some reason something happens, you'll have to come back if you encroach inside of that 12 feet, we'll have to rediscuss. But yeah, I have a pool built and they tried to dig mine 9 feet instead of 6 feet. So mistakes are easy to make. So just to make sure they stay at that 12-foot mark, closest point. Basically, it's the setback line, right? So I think pretty much right where you've designed it, it'll be perfect. As long as they stay there, you're good. All right? Thank you. Next item is Travis Webb, 1205 South Lowry Street, another setback variance. Mitch?
Yeah, this is a request for a front setback variance of 12.5 feet to allow for an ice vending machine. The property request is located at 1205 South Lowry Street and has a lot size of approximately 2.07 acres. Property is zoned C2 and has a minimum front setback requirement of 35 feet. The machine was discovered by the Codes Department on May 22nd of 2020. It was then discovered that the applicant failed to apply for a permit before installation of the structure. Staff did not receive plans prior to installation of the structure. Multiple attempts were made to have this issue resolved with the applicant since it was discovered, but no resolution has been made at this time. Section 7.080D of the zoning ordinance detail requirements for variances not involving special flood hazard areas, and they are detailed below. The board shall not grant a variance unless it makes findings based upon evidence presented as it follows. The particular physical surroundings, shape, topographic conditions of the specific property involved that would result in a particular hardship upon the owner as distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the strict application of this ordinance were carried out must be stated. Staff finds that 1205 South Lowry Street is a fairly uniform shape and is flat, and only approximately half of the property is being utilized by another business. The conditions upon which a petition for a variance is based would not be applicable generally to other property within the same district. Staff finds the property is consistent with many other C2 zone properties within town. The variance will not authorize activities in a zone district other than those permitted by the ordinance. Convenience commercial use are allowed by right within the C2 zoning district but are to adhere to any applicable setbacks. Financial returns shall not be considered as a basis for granting a variance. Property owner has not identified financial returns as a reason for this variance request. Alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property after the effective date of this ordinance. Applicant states the hardship present is a wet weather ditch located behind the machine. Placement of the machine was done by the applicant prior to applying for permits. Granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this ordinance to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. Requests heard previously without permits applied for generally are denied in which no hardship is found, so if approved, it would grant special privileges to the applicant. Granting the variance is the minimum that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. Staff finds the requested setback variance is not the minimum that will make possible the reasonable use of the structure, as the applicant has alternative locations to locate the structure on the property while still meeting all the applicable setback requirements. Granting of the variance will not be detrimental to public welfare or injurious to other property or improvements in the area in which the property is located. Staff finds the variance should not be detrimental to public welfare or injurious to other property or improvements in the area. The proposed variance will not impair adequate supply of light and air to adjacent properties, substantially increase the congestion in the public streets, increase danger of fire, endanger public safety, or substantially diminish or impair property values within the area. Staff finds that granting this variance should not create any of the above effects. Number 10 is not applicable in this case. Staff finds that the lot is relatively uniform in shape with no significant topographic changes. There are many other locations on the property in which the structure could have been erected to meet setbacks. There have been other front setback variance requests presented to the board in previous years, and the requests have been denied due to lack of hardships. So this is a picture of the machine as it stands today, the gravel parking lot. And then this is where the applicant states is that wet weather ditch back here. Just another picture looking at the rest of the property. So this is the portion I mentioned earlier that was being used over on this side, but this property does extend good ways over this way as well.
Can you go back to that side picture real quick? Yeah, right there. So approximately in that picture, approximately how far is the setback? Where would the, if he moved it back inside the, do you know where that would be?
So he's got moving our 12.5 foot back, so you're talking maybe,
Gotcha.
he's sitting right here maybe, roughly.
Okay.
This is just an overall view. Property lines go down to about right here and over, back up.
So it's on the same lot as the fruit stand or whatever
Correct.
that is, okay. So that grass area is not a separate lot?
No,
Okay,
that's all I got.
all right. Any questions, comments? All right. At this time, we will close the Board of Zoning Appeals and open a public hearing for anyone who would like to speak for or against this request. If you would like to speak, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Travis Webb. You say address?
Address, yeah.
703 Williamsburg Drive, Smyrna.
All right, thank you.
I would just like to add, I submitted a picture of the wet weather ditch with my application.
Yeah, we've got that in our packet. I do. Y'all have that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, it looks like it was taken in the winter. There's some snow on the ground.
Right, and anytime it rains or snows, that ditch behind us fills up with water. And that was part of why we put it where it was we didn't want to break that barrier for the weather ditch.
Okay?
And then also it not being a permanent structure or building, that was the other reason. We were not aware we had to follow the setback requirement.
Yeah, previously, I know you and I have talked about this half a dozen times probably.
Yeah.
One of the things that you had mentioned to me prior was that the lot behind it was fill or construction type material that had been filled. But it doesn't look that way. It looks like, I mean, I went by there to see it and there was somebody cutting grass. So it looks pretty level behind the ditch. I think when you and I talked before, I was under the impression that it was like rock or had been filled in. And
It
really
has been
wasn't.
filled in. Yeah.
But it is still level behind it, right?
No, I mean, if you look at the picture, it dips down out there and behind it,
Okay,
and that's where that water retention fills up when it rains hard.
okay. Yeah, it's just
To
real
my
hard.
knowledge, it was used like, not maybe a landfill, but they just dug a hole and buried a bunch of junk in there.
Okay. All right, yeah, that's, when I went out and looked, it looked like pretty much my front yard. So that's why I didn't see what you were
Well,
talking
and
about.
if you've got, I don't know if you've got a copy of not the site plan, but the survey, it shows where there's a retention.
I don't have that. Do you have a copy of that, Mitch? Could I see your copy?
That shows where there's the dirt berm retention.
This all here. So the machine's here, and what this is showing is this retention area, I guess, for the land. See how the topo comes down. That's what it's showing, and it kind of goes right up behind.
And I have some other photos too. You'd like to see those.
That's interesting.
That is, that's different. We didn't have that.
Mitch, have you
And
seen
I
this
wonder
at
what
all?
the distance is between,
I
like,
haven't seen
where
the site
that
plan.
line
I don't
is.
recall it being submitted
We're-
with the application though.
We are right up against that dirt.
So pass this down, yeah. So on that drawing, I'm gonna be honest, wet weather ditch, sometimes, a storm drain system, that sometimes can be considered a hardship. However, in this case, there was so much land behind it, it looks like there's enough room for you to move that back and still avoid that ditch. Your drawing, however, does seem to show a retention area that takes up the most of the rest of the lot, which could be a challenge. So I don't know what you think about that, Mitch. Is that, are we reading that correctly? Does that look like a legitimate survey? I mean,
I know it's a legitimate site plan drawn by Hollis and Steele. I've seen something similar to this before, but I not believe it was submitted with the application
Okay.
packet as well. But I'm not
Yeah.
a specialist as far as that's concerned. I can't verify that's something that TDEC, stormwater is gonna have to verify, make sure it's accurate. I can't specify if that's 100% accurate.
so, Mr. Peach. One, I guess, since it wasn't submitted with the packet, are we allowed to consider it? I assume we are.
I think you're allowed to consider it, which is why I took a picture of it, because we'll need to add it into the record.
Yeah, because I'm gonna be honest, without that drawing, I don't see a hardship. But with that drawing makes it look like the retention pond comes up essentially right behind the machine. Moving that machine backwards would put it in part of what they're designating as a retention area. So that's my concern. And I don't know if we should validate that drawing, defer for a month to validate that drawing, or if we
Steve, I
go.
was gonna actually say, possibly at this point, if we need to defer, we don't wanna get it wrong if there really is something here. We don't wanna deny it. What we had before, I agree 100%, there wasn't enough to do it. That changes it, but do we need to defer to make sure there's time to check that out?
I'll let staff let me know.
Well, it has Huddleston Steel's stamp on here, and I don't think.
That's
that
a
he-
recent survey plan, yeah.
Okay,
I don't think that he would
yeah.
do that, and there would be remedies for that if he did, but I don't
Yeah.
think that he
My,
would.
my only question is,
Yeah,
it's small enough, there's a dark line there that looks like a retention area, but I don't
I'm
see
trying
a
to see what's
legend or see.
identified, yeah, that's why I had tried to, was
Yeah,
trying to
is
blow
that
it
just
up.
a large topo line, or is it really a detention area, which it looks like it is?
My eyes aren't good enough to,
You're older than me, so you can't see it.
Well, I'm also thinking if staff were able to take that and see that where the machine if that's the minimum, if it is backed up to that, and they go out there and go, it is, that's about where this line would be, well, then it can't be moved back even a little bit. But I would think we would need to possibly know that, even if it can go back a couple of feet, just to know where we're at here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say I have another picture here that
Okay. we'll
shows.
see that too.
So the berm is basically where that backflow is, and we're backed up, the back of our pads right there, there's the backflow, and that's basically right where that berm is.
Yeah, so you can kind of see in this
The front of the
picture,
machine is 12.5 feet.
you can kind of see in this picture how it goes around. You can see it turn right here and go up.
See, if you go back here, because your parking would then be in the middle.
Well, see, but all of this would be considered detention,
Right.
this whole area, almost like a pond.
Right, if it is
We
right there
always
to
had
that, I mean,
I see that yesterday.
Yeah.
I went by.
Yeah.
Looked right at it.
Well, and a lot of detentions don't hold water unless it's raining. Right. Right,
so
so,
you can't see it.
yeah.
That's right.
And a lot of detention ponds are grass, which is what I saw. It looks like somebody's yard, right? That drawing definitely gives us a different perspective.
And there's a drain pipe at the end of that lot, just before the sign. There's a drain pipe coming out of that retention area. So, I mean,
Gotcha.
it drains off that way.
So the water gets to the detention area, and then there's a drain pipe running off towards the gas station, kind of?
Yes.
Gotcha.
And that was existing, we didn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the property doesn't have much use back there because of that, for
Yeah.
putting anything on, so
Right.
that's about the most you could do. That appears to be.
trying to look on the legend here.
That's completely different to show that it's river.
Yeah,
I
I
mean, you agree
agree.
with that? I mean, it's.
Okay, any further questions for Mr. Webb?
I don't have any.
I don't think so. Thank you, Mr. Webb, appreciate it. Anyone else that would like to speak for or against? Not seeing anyone, we will close the public hearing and reopen Board of Zoning Appeals. So, Jeff and Mitch, my question is, do we feel confident that the drawing is showing a detention area back there?
I would feel more comfortable if we had Public Works take a look at this before we make a conclusion on it, just to
Okay,
verify.
so let's, what I would like to do then is let's conditionally approve or deny. Put it in your motion that if we're gonna make a motion, that we either validate or make sure, if we decide to deny because this isn't a detention area or we don't feel it's sufficient, then let's put that in our motion, contingent on Public Works verification. If we decide to approve because of the detention, let's do that as well.
Should we just defer it just to hear it?
I'm trying to keep us all from
I'm
having to bring it back. If it's better to defer it, I can do
Yeah,
that.
I think is what I worry with is it may not be it's not a retention pond, I don't think, but it may be another reason that would allow you to have a hardship.
Yeah.
But yet, staff may not have, there may be, they believe one thing where this board believes another.
Right.
And then we've already made a decision on it. I think it would
Okay.
be easier if we just deferred and then you
Okay.
decided.
I would agree with that.
Do we need to
Just-
make a motion to
Yeah,
defer?
Yeah, just a motion to defer to the August meeting. Would that be correct, Jeff?
That'd be correct.
Okay.
Is that your motion?
That is my
All
motion.
right, so we have a motion to defer till August to allow time for staff to review the Huddleston Steel engineering diagram that was provided today.
I will second that.
We have a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion is deferred until August to give them time to review that document. The staff, I'm sure, will be in touch with you on next steps as far as probably coming back to this meeting in August. The next item on our agenda is staff comments or any other business, anything.
That's all I got.
All right, if there's nothing else, we stand adjourned. Thank you.